Everybody's Brady from Lee Weather Forecast here, and I haven't posted in a while, but I was gonna post, I think, the last storm, um, but then something happened. But anyways, get going here. Hurricane Elsa currently moving through the Caribbean, and it's making an impact for sure. Um, the reason it was upgraded to a hurricane earlier this morning was actually because of a weather station in Barbados that reported sustained winds of 74 miles an hour, which is the exact qualification it takes for there to be a hurricane. So they made the upgrade, and it's been a hurricane ever since. It's maintained that intensity throughout the day. It was able to persist convection throughout the morning, so it was able to intensify into 85 miles per hour and even down to 991 millibar pressure, I think it got to for the 11 or the 2 p.m. advisory. I forget which one. Um, but the pressure has gone back up a few millibars as convection has waned a little bit and hasn't able to persist during D-min now. So that's been something that's been going on with Elsa in the meantime. But so we see currently it's an 85 mile per hour hurricane with a 995 millibar pressure. So it's definitely yeah, it's not a weak one. So it's definitely got better organization than the rest of the storms this year. It's definitely going to leave an impact wherever it makes landfall. So it's something we're going to watch. We can take a look at the National Hurricane Center cone here. And this is where we start to disagree a little bit, or at least I do, and I know some others do. In terms of intensity, National Hurricane Center has it weakening and maintaining intensity from here on out. I believe more that this storm is going to. Um, it depends on if it threads the needle or not. That's something we're going to have to watch. If it does make a landfall in Hispaniola, and is able to hit land, then we could see it lose intensity as well. So that's something we're gonna have to watch. But if this storm is able to thread the needle between Jamaica and Hispaniola, like some of the models have been indicating, we could be looking at a strengthening potential hurricane up until landfall. And starting to see some of the models show a little bit of increase in shear. Some models have been. But still yet to see. We have still yet to see what the exact environment will be by the time this storm is approaching Hispaniola and Jamaica. So that's something we're going to have to watch. But again, I think the storm is going to intensify again. I think tomorrow, I think we're going to see this thing intensify. A good amount. I wouldn't be surprised if this is able to jump up another category. It's not out of the realm of possibility that this does reach major hurricane status here, as a model like the H-Worth is showing. And I'm not a big fan of just popping model runs up, but this highlights an example here. So if I play this out, if it loads, should have used Google. Safari is slow as hell. Damn. But we can see the H-Wharf has a 970 millibar Category 2 hurricane off the coast of Hispaniola in about 36 hours from now. So around 2 a.m. On Sunday. Yep, 2 a.m. Sunday is showing a hurricane just south of Hispaniola, a strong hurricane 2 of Category 2 strength. And then we advance this a little bit more. No, go back one. And then even allows it to get up into a Category 3 hurricane with, around a 960 millibar pressure into Sunday morning. So this is something we're going to have to watch. But if it can thread the needle even more, we can see how it starts to really, it heads more west-northwest than rather just northwest direction. Which it had been previously doing. You can see it kind of just starts to slide off to the west here. If it's able to thread the needle and push about, 30 to 50 miles more southwest, and only more of just graze the tip of southeastern Cuba, then it's going to be able to stay in that warm waters with significant deep ocean heat content for a bit longer, and we can show some of that here. Hopefully, can I show it here? Do we have it? Yeah. See, we can see the Atlantic deep ocean heat content here, and we look at it, it's just south of Puerto Rico right now. So if you see some of that, some of those neonish, yellowish, greenish colors with the light blue, just south of Puerto Rico, that's where we're looking at it right now, a little bit southeast of that. And it's going to continue to push its way, or just south of that, sorry, it's going to continue to push its way west. And you can see where we see some of those yellow and orange colors, that's where it's heading for. So deep ocean heat content is going to be on the rise as and tomorrow for sure for this storm and into Sunday. So as long as shear isn't incredibly destructive to this storm, which I don't think it's going to be, I think we're going to be looking at potentially a 10 to 20 knot situation, which is favorable to neutral for tropical cyclone intensification. So that is something that definitely we're gonna have to monitor too. And then here's sea surface temperature anomalies. Again, we are more than above average, across the Caribbean and in the southern part of the MDR as well, the main development region. So, sea surface temperatures are definitely rather warm as we look here, and I'll get you the exact numbers. As we're 28, 29 degrees Celsius all across the Caribbean right now, and we can see that 29-degree pocket just south of Cuba, which is going to be even more favorable for potential intensification. So, those are kind of some of the factors. Again, we're looking at for potential intensification or just maintains itself. I don't see the storm, weakening a ton. The ways I see the storm weakening is if shear is able to really get a handle on this storm and allow dry air to the north and west to wrap in potentially. That is something we could have to watch for, and I'll show you what I mean here. We go to Elsa. That's how it looks. You can see here some of the convection was waning, as you can see, but now it's starting to fire back up. It looks like potentially around the core. So the center of the storm is right around here, just west of where this convection is popping up right now. And this is Weather Nerds, by the way, great website. And the last one I was using was Hurricane Tracker app, also very helpful when trying to forecast and just be aware of the threats for a hurricane. But some of this convection is starting to wane here, but I'll take a look at water vapor. So give me an idea what I'm talking about. You can see the dry air to the west and northwest, but even though convection waning some, then not really some big signs of dry air really, just trying to kill this core right now. You can see it's continuing, the moisture field's continuing to push west and move the dry air out of the way, as you can see. And moisture is one of the most important, if not the most important ingredient when we're talking about tropical cyclone intensification. So that is one thing it has going, and it's been having going for the storm for a while now. And you can see that convection starting to fire up too is only going to continue to help to provide more moisture for this storm. So yeah, definitely, it doesn't look like there will be a lack of moisture at this point. And some of the models we're trying to take away a little bit and have a little bit more dry air show up in future forecasts. But some of the 18Z model runs that came in within the last couple hours have been starting to show getting potentially a little bit more moistening the environment. So again, we'll slide this back to regular IR. We can see we have our convective burst starting to pop right now. And again, we're around D-min, which is also known as that diurnal minimum, basically point in the day where we're looking at cold cloud tops here. So when it's nighttime, it's colder than it is when it is in the day. So it's when it's peak in the night, we're talking about 2, 4, 5 a.m. That's what we call DMAX, which is the peak time frame for convection, especially when we're talking about tropical cyclones. And it's also, and then D-min, which is what we call it for short as well, is usually around later in the day towards sunset, when convection is most likely it's not as likely to be as aggressive as it would be later in the night, I guess is a good way of putting it, for those that don't understand what that is. But again, we can see the storm Again, I think there's going to be some intensification tonight. I don't know exactly how much, but it would not be surprising, if you wake up tomorrow and this thing is edging your Category 2 status or is Category 2. So I will say that there are some factors that are certainly looking like they could be in favor. This is just the Dvorak satellite, not most important. No, this is where I want to go. Yep. Very I do love this website from the University of Wisconsin. This we can see all the factors here for tropical cyclone development. We can take a look at wind shear right now. This is where our storm is, and we can see it's dealing with around I would say around 10 to 15 knots of wind shear right now, and that looks like it's what it's going to continue to move through the environment as it pushes northwest here. This is where we're looking at this area, and we can see it's around 5 to 15 knots around Jamaica, Hispaniola, and southern Cuba right now. So that's the area we're going to continue to have to watch for wind shear, because if it stays 15 knots, even in the 10 to 15 knot range, it's still rather favorable for tropical cyclones to intensify, and tropical cyclones can still intensify, in around 20 knots of shear. So it's not out of the question as well. It could use some of those 29 plus degree sea surface temperatures to its advantage and really get going here. And the next one I want to show you is 850 millibar vorticity. This is where we get a look, under the hood of the storm and how it looks. In terms of how strong is it really spinning is a good way to put it. That's what vorticity is. So we can see here it's always looked rather healthy from a vorticity perspective, and that's what made me skeptical of some of the lower end forecasts. Even when it was a tropical depression, it looked rather healthy in terms of how strong the vorticity signature was on the storm, and it looks pretty good right now, but you can tell it's still a little bit tilted. That's one of the factors that's allowed for the storm to level off currently in terms of intensification this afternoon. Is the vortex is a bit tilted, meaning the low level center and the mid level center, mid level center driven many times by convection in the mid levels of the atmosphere, literally, and the low level center. A lot of times you'll see that naked swirl on satellite. That's what's referred to as the low level center. It's not aligned right now, and you want that to be aligned, basically. It's gotta look at it like an analogy is good team chemistry. If not everybody's on board, then there's a good chance your plan's gonna go south. But if everybody's in line, everybody's connected, there's a good chance whatever your plan is, it's gonna work out much better. And then that's kind of how you can look at it right now for its mid-level and low-level alignment of the two centers. So you can kind of see that how there's a strong spin just to the southeast of where the center of the vortex of Hurricane Elsa has been located. So if this is able to align and vertically stack its column, we could be looking at potentially a much more substantial threat for intensification. And we also want to look forward to see if the vorticity signature can increase to some of these, these whitish, pinkish colors too, which will also be another good indicator to correlate with the potential intensification of Elsa. So again, I don't have a specific forecast because that's not really my job. It's just to provide you. That's the National Hurricane Center job. I'm not going to provide something that I know is going to be wrong. There's like a 1 in 10 chance the exact number I gave you would be wrong, but I would look for. I'm one that believes that this thing is not done intensifying. I think it leveled off for sure during the day, and right now it might be a little. Hurricane hunters may find some weaker winds that may support less of an 85 mile per hour hurricane, 75, 80 mile per hurricane potentially. But I'm of the thought, as I'll switch it back here to something more interesting to look at while I talk. I'm of the thought that this is going to intensify as it approaches the Cuba area, or as it approaches the Hispaniola, Jamaica area. For sure, I wouldn't be surprised, if this convective burst isn't the one that gets it done, but potentially could be a couple more overnight as well that could potentially allow the storm to intensify. But I'll show you, put it to where what the HWRF was kind of showing, which was showing intensification, pausing intensification for now. It was showing that, and then continuing it later tonight, potentially in a few hours. So we can see here around 11 p.m. holding steady, around close to a Category 1 hurricane. But then we can see here by 2 a.m. has it intensifying a little bit more. And then we'll hold up. Let me go back. And potentially holding, and then potentially leveling off again a little bit. But then we can see it has it, pushing north a little bit. But then it really starts to have it moving west and intensifying, in the morning tomorrow. And then through the afternoon. So that's what we're going to have to watch for. How much will intensify tonight and throughout the day tomorrow, because that's, I think, might be the peak time for intensification in terms of Hurricane Elsa. So we have a lot of factors to watch for with this storm, a lot of models with a lot of different ideas, but the more different ideas I throw at you, just may not be useful, really, because a good chance a lot of them are wrong. I didn't even get a chance to show the GFS, which is the best global model for right now for tropical cyclones. I think without a doubt for sure. And then the Euro is not even worth showing because that model has been horrendously bad in the beginning stages of tropical cyclones since last year and the pandemic started. I can't assimilate all the data as efficiently and as well as it used to. So GFS has become one of the better models now in terms of tropical cyclones, but that's a side note. Again, we're going to be looking for, again, the threats for heavy rainfall will persist. I think we'll see Puerto Rico. I think you're going to avoid a good amount of it. I think you could get into some of the outer bands potentially, which potentially could produce some 25 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, and some brief downpours are definitely possible for Puerto Rico. Can't rule that out. And then Hispaniola could potentially be looking at the northern edge of this hurricane, or potentially a direct impact depending on how trends go overnight. So that's something we'll have to watch for, where Hispaniola could be having to deal with potentially maybe a Category 2 strong Cat 1 hurricane. We'll have to see down the road. I'm not ruling out major hurricane potential, but again, I don't think it's the most likely at this point. It would take a lot. Its forward speed, it is going to slow down. It's currently moving around 30 miles per hour, but it is going to slow down a little bit tomorrow, I think, which can either help or hurt. If it's in a less favorable environment, it can help. That could hurt in terms of intensification for Elsa, but if it is in a more favorable environment and the storm is slowing down, that allows more time for the storm to stay in that environment. So that is that is also another thing that we should keep note of for this storm. But again, as new convection looks to fire, get a new read on this. And as new convection looks to fire, there could be a sign that it could be trying to intensify, but for now, intensification has leveled off, it looks, for the last, 4 or 5 hours. So I will be monitoring trends overnight. I will continue to be providing a lot of tweets. I can't say tomorrow I will be all over it, but I know tonight I will be covering Elsa for most of my night. Tomorrow I can't say for sure. I might have some conflicts that make it hard to tweet as much, but I'll still find my way to look at models and satellite and National Hurricane Center stuff for sure. So again, I'll stay safe. I'd say Jamaica, Hispaniola, Cuba, especially Cuba. Cuba could take the worst of this potentially. All of Cuba should be ready, but I think more likely potentially the west central, and the central part of Cuba, and potentially the southeastern part of Cuba as well. I think the very far western tip of Cuba is the most safe as of right now, I will say, and then Florida we'll have to look for down the road, and potentially all the way up the east coast we could be looking at a subtropical storm or an extratropical storm of some sort. How strong we won't know yet, but probably some heavy rainfall and some gusty winds up the East Coast at some point in the remnants of Elsa. So yeah, that's all we got going on. I hope y'all have a great night.